Hey, it's Mark Diaz here, attorney with CloseTrack, and today we're going to talk about closing costs, and specifically seller costs. This is a question we get a lot from people when they want to sell their house or want to know how much is it going to cost. About $800, but I should have put an asterisk on that. Really, it kind of depends on where you are. So we're going to talk about closing costs in Shelby County, West Tennessee, Fayette, Tipton. And also, we're going to go into a little more detail on the closing costs, or the question behind the question. What people want to know a lot of times is, how much is this whole deal going to cost me? And how much will I have left over to buy my next house? So we've got kind of three categories. We've got closing costs, and if you could see me, I'd be putting the quotes sign over the closing costs. We've got the loan payoff, and then other expenses. Now, closing costs are a term of art in the sense that they mean different things to different people, but it's really whatever's negotiated in the sales contract. But sometimes people are asking what the closing costs are while they're negotiating the sales contract. So again, on a realtor-assisted deal in West Tennessee, those closing costs are typically going to be your real estate commission, your attorney's fees, which are usually listed as a closing fee and a document preparation fee, and then maybe a notary or disbursement fee. In our case, those usually run around $500. The title search, usually the seller pays for that in these areas. And one question we hear a lot about the title search from sellers is, I just had a title search done, or I bought it last year and had a title search and the title was clear. Well, they still have to search it again because they have to make sure the title is clear as of the day of closing. And that's going to consist of checking to see if you took out any other loans. There may be lawsuits, judgments, bankruptcies against buyers or sellers, a variety of things. And a lot of times the reason we do a title search is it's necessary for the issuance of title insurance. And unlike most insurance policies, title insurance insures retroactively. In other words, it insures from the day of closing backwards. So in order to do that, they have to do the title search. Property taxes. This one gets a little bit confusing for people. And one question I hear a lot is, but I include my taxes in my payment. Well, that's fine, and most people do that. And what they're doing is they're sending a portion of the property tax bill along with their monthly payment to the mortgage company, and that is deposited into their escrow account. Now, it's not being paid to the county or the city, but once a year. So they hold it in escrow until it comes due. And in the case of, let's say, the city of Memphis in Shelby County, city of Memphis taxes come out in June, county taxes come out in October. So, for example, if we closed in March, what we would do at closing is charge the seller their share of the taxes, which would be January 1st through the closing date, and then we would credit that money to the buyer, because the buyer is going to pay the bill later in the year when it comes due. And when that bill comes out, that covers the calendar year. So the city tax bill, which comes out in June, that covers from January through December. So you're paying a half year in arrears and a half year in advance. So the money that the seller had been paying in their monthly payment for taxes, that goes into escrow, and they would be refunded that from the mortgage company after closing. Usually takes about a month after closing. All right, next we've got loan payoff. Most people can easily find their principal balance on their loan payoff, and they think that's what their payoff is, but a lot of times they'll come to closing and they'll see a bigger amount. And that's because the bank adds interest through the payoff date, as well as they may charge some additional fees for generating the payoff statement. So the interest could be as much as 75% of a typical monthly payment, just depending on where you are in the life of your loan. Also, what else we got next here? Other expenses. These can add up to be pretty expensive. And to begin with, the repairs. It's pretty common nowadays for buyers to get home inspections. And when they hire a home inspector to go check out a house, usually they're going to find something wrong and something that needs to be repaired, and they're going to ask the seller to do that. A home warranty, that can cost between $400 and $600. A lot of times buyers ask for those in the contract. That can be negotiated, but it may be common in the area, or it could be a function of supply and demand. If buyers are in a stronger negotiating position. Same with buyers' closing costs. Now, the buyer's closing costs can be pretty significant, and if you're in a market that does a lot of FHA and VA loans, you may see buyers in their offer asking for 3 to 6% of the sales price, asking the seller to pay 3 to 6% of the sales price towards the buyer's closing costs. So, for example, you had a $200,000 house and the buyer's asking you to pay 6% of their closing costs. So, in addition to your closing costs, they're going to ask you to pay up to maybe $12,000 of their closing costs. It's pretty significant. Another big factor that can impact your proceeds is a low appraisal, and we're seeing those come back pretty frequently also. Most contracts will have a requirement that the property appraise for at least the sales price, and if it doesn't, the buyer can walk away. Usually what happens in that situation is if an appraisal comes in lower, a lot of times the seller will just lower the sales price. And from the buyer's standpoint, they typically don't want to overpay, and then also their mortgage company will only loan based on the appraised value, or the lower of sales price or appraised value. All right, so that's kind of maybe more than what you wanted to know on closing costs, but that's kind of everything that I could think of that could come up that could impact your proceeds. We've got a lot of other videos and tutorials on our website, as well as a net sheet. It's a spreadsheet. It's real simple. It's on our website. It's called a net sheet, and that's just an Excel spreadsheet that will help you calculate your own closing costs. And also, we've got a sample closing statement. This is the statement where your closing costs would be itemized at closing, and we'll go over that at closing, but it'll give you a heads up on what we're going to be doing at closing. If you have any questions, just give us a call or visit the website for more information. Thank you.